John, how you doing? It's been a little while.
Great.
So you're wearing a white T-shirt. I'm wearing a white T-shirt. This is the first time we've had white T-shirts on doing this.
Well,
You got any?
this is an example of our sartorial splendor, I think. I see that handsome man coming up there.
Wait, look at this.
My God!
Who's that guy? Crazy.
Probably a neighborhood pervert. I don't know.
The story
So-
behind this for everybody watching.
For
is
the
that
two
I-
people that are watching.
Precisely. I had to order checks for my daughter who's in college, like checks that you write, and I did it from Vistaprint. This is, I should get a sponsorship from Vistaprint because it's a lot cheaper, and like she's going to use 25 checks in her whole life probably. She's like, "What's a check?" I was like, "I don't remember actually." And I had to look it up, and I'm like, "Oh, that's what we use those for." She had to write one check actually to a sorority house for a deposit, and then they started cross-selling me, and they started cross-selling me pictures of the book cover because I had business cards printed with the book cover, and here we are. I don't usually get cross sold so easily, but there it was, and so I sent John a picture. So he's got, it's too bad that you didn't have the book cover on you weren't holding the book in the picture, because then it could be that infinite thing where it's the book cover and your face just ad infinitum.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah. Well, I mean, precisely. So actually the title of this, the point of this video is the hyphen. This is actually a grammatical video. We've been talking about your teaching methods and life lessons, but this is going to get back to the basics of grammar and writing here. And so hyphens are a little bit tricky. When do you use them? When don't you use them? There are a couple of major rules that'll take care of 80%, 90% of your cases, but then there's tons of little edge cases that can be I don't know, a challenge. So let's start with the basics. What do you think is the most important use of a hyphen?
Well, I think there's two uses. One is that when you have a compound modifier, two adjectives preceding a noun, you want to use the hyphen. Okay, so what it is, it's in order to use a hyphen to connect to compound modifier. So the example I always use in my classes was a line from the Boston Globe many years ago. It said, "Police help dog bite victim." And then there was no hyphen between dog and bite. So actually that meant the police were helping the dog to bite the victim. Of course, no one ever, sorry, I told you I had a frog in my throat. So nobody would ever mistake that. But yet, if you looked at the sentence without the hyphen, it should have been, "Please help dog hyphen bite victim." So then it would be a dog bite victim rather than a dog biting a victim. And there are so many examples like that throughout literature.
Well, we have a couple like all night diner, full scale assault, and they're not ambiguous. As dog bite victim is truly ambiguous, but there are cases where full scale assault is, when you see full scale assault, all night diner, we wouldn't necessarily need the hyphen to understand that it's a diner open all night. But grammatically speaking, you hyphenate all and night and then have diner in there, right? And dog bite victim, you have dog hyphen bite and victim.
Right.
So
exactly.
yeah, so basically compound adjectives, if it's an adjective noun combination or two adjectives that are next to each other and a noun after, you're going to
modifying. Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. The other one, there's a general rule that most prefixes, anti-pro, blah, 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 that are attached to the root word, like, say, predate, that predates it. Okay, so that would be predate, one word. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if the root word, that the prefix is attached to is uppercase, like anti-Catholic. Catholic is uppercase. There would be then in that case there would be a hyphen there to connect the prefix to the root word.
Right.
And a lot of people. What I was going to say, there's only one case where it's really consistent to my mind, and I could be totally wrong, but it's the prefix self. Self is always, to my knowledge, attached to the root word with a hyphen. Self-aware. self-critical, self-absorbed. That kind of resign.
Self-serving, self-esteem, self-made.
Yeah, etc. Yeah.
Interesting. There's an example with the prefix anti, pro, pre, etc. There's another exception where it's like if you're anti-idiot, say you're against idiots, you would probably hyphenate if it's two vowels. So anti ends with an I, idiot starts with an I. You would hyphenate that just for clarity's sake.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, go ahead. But these are really we talk about edge cases. This is really, as a writer, it's pretty uncommon that you're going to run into this. And if you're writing, if you make a mistake like that, if you're writing professionally, hopefully an editor will catch you. If you're not writing professionally, they're not going to probably mark you down too much for missing something that is that obscure. Another interesting one is called suspensive hyphenation, which I just learned what the grammatical term for it is. Suspensive
never heard
hyphenation.
Never heard
Yeah.
of it. Go on.
I just ran into it online, but it's a very common usage where, so when you were assigning work as a teacher, you would say, hey, for this assignment, it's going to be an 800 to 1,000 word essay. And so you would say the assignment is, and we'll write this out, but 800 hyphen space 2 1,000 numeral 1,000 hyphen word essay. Or the performance was both over and underwhelming.
No. You wouldn't have the hyphen before an essay. It'd be the words before.
No, after word. Yeah, after the word, after the number 1,000. No hyphen between word and essay. Yeah, and I'll have this written out.
Okay.
All right. So, and then the performance was both over and underwhelming. So it's both overwhelming and underwhelming, so that you'd have both over and then you have a hyphen, space, and underwhelming one word, right? Under being a prefix in that case too, right? So you would under hyphen whelming it. So those are also. The other interesting one is another word that I had seen but hadn't seen in a long time. It's called a homograph, and it's an identical looking word with totally different meaning. And two interesting examples of that are recover or recover, and recreate and recreate. They look exactly the same, and it's a really uncommon thing that you're going to actually write a sentence that this through context isn't going to be clear from. Let's say you go work out with weights, you need to recover for a day, and then when you come back, you see your dog has wiggled out of the blankets you put him under, so you will recover him, right? You'd hyphenate that recover because it's not clear. And then recreate, if you recreate the wheel, then obviously it's different than if you're having a good time recreating. Most of the time, if you write, I recreated the crime scene, you won't have to hyphenate that because nobody thinks you're talking about recreating the crime scene. But to recreate is to go have fun, right? So if there's a case where it's not clear, then you need to hyphenate it, which to me brings up an interesting point, which you and I disagree a little bit on this, in that I think your tendency is to hyphenate probably more often than I would, because you're less confident that the reader's going to understand it through context. And so we were talking about high school teacher, right? Where
I always hyphenate.
Right. And I probably wouldn't. But that doesn't mean either one of us is wrong, because I would assume that if I'm talking about a high school teacher,
that means you're wrong.
Okay. Right. Or wrong. But basically,
who was your teacher at the University of Michigan? Were you teaching at the University of Michigan? Did you teach argumentative writing or advanced essay writing?
Not that I can recall.
What follows?
I had this guy with a beard. Yeah.
Handsome devil he was.
He
yes.
was devastatingly handsome.
Yeah.
But he was wrong about high school stuff, basically. But here's the deal. So I'm in Colorado where marijuana is legal. There are high school teachers, hopefully not during class, but that's a high school teacher. That is actually a relevant statement in certain contexts in Colorado and in Michigan probably too. But it's pretty uncommon that you say the high school teacher was talking about the Civil War. You would not be saying that teacher was high and talking about the Civil War, although that's also possible. So I don't know.
He could also be a very tall teacher.
Exactly.
High, or very high.
Exactly. You, for example, were a high teacher. You were a high college teacher. But You know, that you wouldn't hyphenate high college that I could think of. In any,
No, I don't think so. No.
Is there anything else that we should talk about hyphens? I mean, I think we've made this as confusing as is to be expected.
Well, I mean, I like to be consistent. So I mean, I always use them when they like you could say he's a real estate agent. Most people would just write real estate as, you know, 2 words. But is he an estate agent or is he a real agent? I think he's a real estate, so I would hyphenate real estate agent. I'm sure in the dictionary, I'm sure the American Heritage Dictionary, our beloved dictionary, our Veda, make them the real estate probably isn't hyphenated.
No, probably not. But I mean, the reality is, and I think it brings up an interesting point, is that there are cases where if you hyphenated that, an editor would probably be unjustified in unhyphenating unless they had a style, like a local
style manual.
Style manual that's unique to that publication, say the New York Times or whatever, the Daily Camera in Boulder, or some company that's doing press releases. If they have a style manual and it's a real estate company, probably they're not going to hyphenate it because they're using it a lot. But most likely without that in a style manual, because it's a 50-50 call, or in my case, I would not hyphenate real estate agent because I think in context it's pretty clear. But you know, from a strict logical perspective, you're dead right. So because it is a compound modifier. All right.
Well, before we move, can I tell a quick story, a funny story?
I would love you to.
Okay, so these affixes, these are words that come, we have them in English. Before a word is a prefix, after a word it's a suffix. We have these, right?
You're right.
But so anyway, one time, I think in the 90s, early 90s, late 80s, I had this marvelous, funny, delightful man from Germany, because we had an exchange program. We would send a scholar to Germany for a year, and Germany would send us a scholar from the University of Mainz. This man's name was Gerhard Rickes. And so I would meet with 7 or 8 TAs. Now they're called GSIs, graduate student instructors, but I would meet with them once a week in my office, and we'd talk about what happened in the class and what the lesson plans were, and blah, blah, blah. And so anyway, one day Gerhard walked into the meeting a little late, and he was so excited. He said, people, he said, I heard an infix. Now, in some languages have infixes, the little things that go in the middle of words. And I told him, I said, you heard it in what, in German, or, because he was German, or what? And he said, no, I heard it in English. And I said, there's no infix in the English language. He said, I heard it just outside. And I said, what is it? He said, someone said, unfucking believable. And, you know, so he thought fucking, he was kidding, of course, because he's so funny and so bright, but it made everybody laugh, because this is probably the only infix in the English language, maybe. Unfucking believable. Lovely.
That's great.
Just
awesome.
Lovely. All right, so let's
Good
move
stuff.
on.
On that note, so good. Let's thank you for hyphenation, and we'll look forward to the next one.
Okay,
hey,
fuck
John,
you very much.
Cool. Yeah,
fuck you very much.
Good. We'll talk soon then.
Okay, bye. Don't
Bye.
threaten me. Bye.